Hey there, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show that is dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here with the episode that we've been doing once a week now for a while, which is Battle of the Masterpiece albums. This will be episode number 14. We have one more left in the first round before we get to the semis and then the finals. So there's 6 left basically. So what I do here is I've taken all the masterpiece albums in my personal collection. So the ones that I have designated as being masterpieces. Now there's actually hundreds of albums that other people would consider masterpieces. Maybe the world in general would consider masterpieces, but some of those, of course, aren't masterpieces to me. So I'm not doing it based on that. I'm just doing it based on my own personal masterpieces. And the purpose for this, for those of you who've been following already know this, but for those of you who are new, the purpose of this is to determine if the albums that I've had for years and decades are still the best albums to me, or maybe some of the newer ones have kind of taken over that mantle. So far, it's been, of the 13 previous episodes, only one of those episodes has there been an upset. And so that just tells me that my nostalgic albums that I love are still relevant to me today. And that's really what I was trying to find out. Are these albums still my favorite? And it seems that they are, but we're not going to find out until we do the next round. So we have 4 albums today, of course, because we have 4 in every one, except for next week where we'll have 5. And also in next week, 2 of those albums will go on to the finals to make it an even 16 albums in the semifinals. Sorry, not finals, semifinals. So the 4 albums we're going to be talking about today are Rush's Caress of Steel, Genesis' Trick of the Tail, Black Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and the last but certainly not the least, the Eagles' The Long Run. So I did forget to say this. So what I normally do is I show all 4 of the albums that are in the competition, then I talk about each of them a bit, and then I give you my ranking. So I've listened to all 4 of them. Again, not that I haven't listened to all 4 of them before. Many times for some of these, it's probably closer. It's probably close to 1,000 in some cases, at least for the for Trick of the Tail and. Actually, to be honest with you, I think pretty much all 4 of these are probably close to 1,000 listens in my lifetime. Most of them have been listened to quite a bit at the period when they came out. They've gone through phases where I'll go through a run where I want to listen to them. And before this channel, I had about 60 albums or so that I played all the time over years. So many of them are like that. Now that would be difficult for a new album, for something like Gentle Giant's Acquiring the Taste, which I absolutely love. For it to get to 1,000, it's going to be next to impossible because I just got so much to listen to. I'd have to be listening to it nonstop, and that just won't happen anymore. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get on to the album topic. So the first one we're going to do, I'm just going to do them in the reverse order that I just gave them to you. So the Eagles' Long Run. This is the Eagles' final album, which is kind of strange that they would end this way. It's just such a good album. I easily think this is their best album. I know some people like Hotel California quite a bit, and I understand that. It's got a lot of good stuff on it. Some of them like their debut album, some like Desperado. I mean, everybody has their favorites. This particular one was my entry point, and it still has a lot of meaning for me. It's got 10 tracks on it in total. This came out in 1979. Probably my favorite track on this album over the history of the album is still my favorite track, which is the title track, The Long Run. I do love this song a lot. It's never really gone up or down or diminished to me. It's always stayed pretty consistently at the top. Some of the other songs, I can't tell you why. Those Shoes, The Sad Cafe, those songs have all had their moments in time with me, but they're not among my favorite songs on the album. So then you got In the City, which it probably qualifies in that section as well. I do like this particular track. I think this is the, if I'm not mistaken, this is, I think, the sole track on the album with vocals done by Joe Walsh. I think he's quite good, though. Disco Strangler has always been a top track for me on this album. It's got a kind of heaviness to it, but it's at the same time it's slow and melodic and not heavy at the same time, if that makes any sense. It's got a great guitar part on there as well, that kind of solo. I'm not sure which one of the two of them is doing it, but it's fantastic. King of Hollywood, this is a song that's kind of always been in the middle. Never been a top track, never really been a bottom track, but I always liked it. Heartache Tonight was probably my favorite track and probably the track that drew me to the album when I first got it. But I long ago burned it out and don't really listen to it much or even think about it at all, really. Teenage Jail, another heavy track. This one, very similar to Disco Strangler. Got its heavy parts in it as well as its smooth, quieter parts and melodic parts as well. And the Greeks Don't Want No Freaks. This may be the fastest pace and heaviest pace song on the album. It has its parts that I like, but it's a bit of a quirky song. But a good album, very solid album. Obviously, it made a masterpiece for me. And not too long ago, too. I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I finally gave it masterpiece status. So the next album out, completely different sounding album. And I know I've had people on here saying you can't really compare these albums. Well, no, you can't, because they're in often ways very disparate and different than each other. But I'm not really comparing them. I'm just talking about how I feel about them, how they rank for me. That's all I'm doing. And this is not a comparison. Obviously, they can't compare this to that. That's completely different sounds. But I do like this album a lot. So when I was in high school, I think what happened is, I don't remember this exactly, but at some point on one given day, I remember going downtown to get Paranoid, because I already had Never Say Die, and I also had Heaven and Hell. Those were my first two. I think those were my first two Sabbath albums. Could be wrong, but I think I had those two first. And I went downtown to get Paranoid, which I thought was going to be my next album. And I ended up buying Paranoid, Master of Reality, Volume 4, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, as well as the debut album. So I bought 5 of them, and then gradually I started listening to them all. And this one is quite different than some of those earlier ones. They're all quite different from each other, but this one's a little even more different. This one has a kind of almost a progressive element to it. Also has a bit of a classical element to it. It's a varied album. Yes, the heavy parts on here are as heavy as anything Sabbath has put out, but some of the other stuff is very different than any of the stuff they ever put out. So the two heavy tracks on here to me are Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, of course, the opening track, and Killing Yourself to Live. These are both absolutely classic Sabbath sounds, and they're among my favorite Sabbath songs. They just, especially Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, just absolutely killer track. Killing Yourself to Live, another just absolutely killer track, right? Looking for Today, another good song. I don't think it's as good as either of those two. And then you have the songs that kind of fill in around those songs. So you've got National Acrobat. Some people don't like this song. I get that, but I kind of like it. It's always been one of my favorites on the album. Fluff is very different. This is a instrumental part that it's not something you would normally expect Black Sabbath to put out. But it's really good. It's a really good instrumental with lots of different kind of low end pieces. Classical guitar. I believe there's a little bit of bass on this as well. I don't remember if there's drums. Obviously, there's some keyboard parts as well. So, yeah, quite a good song. Sabbath Sabracadabra. This is the Rick Wakeman keyboard at part. He did keyboards on this. This is a very different song from Sabbath. It's kind of got a little bit of that heavy part in it, but it's very proggy, I think. And Who Are You? This may be the worst track on the album. I don't hate it, but if you got to put one down at the very bottom, it's probably this one. Spiral Architect, another fantastic tune. This is maybe one of the most underrated Sabbath songs out there. Again, very different sounding than you normally get from Sabbath. Of course, the album cover is fantastic. You've got this devil, the guy's in bed with all these kind of demons and witches and whatever that is around them. And then if you look at the backside of the original album, it's the opposite. It's got all, he's in bed and all these angels and religious things here too. I like the two lions here, and doesn't really have them here. A couple rats maybe, but really great album cover. Love it. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Next up, Trick of the Tail, one of the truly great prog albums of all time. I do like this cover. It's got a little bit of everything, and it goes right on to the back, of course. It's got a little bit of everything on here from each of the songs on the album, so it's kind of representative of everything, and the artwork is quite good indeed. So this was my entry point. Like the Eagles album, The Long Run, this was my entry point into Genesis. I think I bought this and Wind in the Wuthering either fairly close together or on the same day. Probably bought them the same day. And this was the one I listened to the most. Or I'm thinking it was the other thing that went on where I bought Wind in the Wuthering and my friend bought A Trick of the Tail. Again, I can't remember exactly how that went. It was one of those two scenarios, though. I'm just not, my memory isn't absolutely ideal for that kind of thing, where I didn't remember it completely. Every single track on this album, at some point or another, I've absolutely loved and was interested in hearing all the time. Other than Los Endos, which is like What Gorilla on Wind and Wuthering. It's just something that's there. I know it, I hear it, I know instantly what it is, but I just don't really, it's never really had any kind of vibe for me. Dance on a Volcano initially, along with Squonk, was probably my favorite two tracks on the album. For different reasons, I found Dance on the Volcano was faster paced and heavier than what I was used to, than most Genesis stuff of the time period. Squonk, on the other hand, was telling a story. The thing I like about Genesis, and it started with Peter Gabriel, it continues on this album, is their storytelling. Their storytelling is near the top of my interest rate. I just love their stuff. Probably their vocals are easier to understand than some of the other storytelling groups, but this one is great. I love it. Madman, Moon, Entangled, and Ripples. I always lump them all together because they've all had their period of time at the top of the heap for me, but they're all very similar. When I think of them, I think of lullabies, even though they're not really lullabies. You just have some great vocals, like angels come in every size. Some are wise and some otherwise. Just the vocals on all of these songs are fantastic. Phil Collins, beautiful voice on this album. Just absolutely killer. Ripples probably was my favorite for the longest time. Then Entangled kind of took over that mantle. And in recent years, Madman Moon has probably come on. Maybe I like it even more than either of them. The other songs on here, Robbery, Assault, and Battery, it's had its period in history where it was among my favorite songs, period. I still like it a lot. It's got that, it's kind of a quirky song. Kind of reminds me of Harold the Barrel for some reason. They don't really sound alike, but it's that kind of English humor going on. Trick of the Tail, of course, the final track. I always thought of this initially as a bit of a filler song, but I've grown to like it a lot. It's a little story. I do like it. All this album and Wind and the Wuthering have some of the best stories of any of the Genesis albums, and definitely among the best of any prog stuff. So there you have Trick of the Tail. And now to the final album, Caress of Steel. This Rush's third album. Actually, I didn't say that this was released in 76 and the Sabbath one in 74. This one released in 75. So in the same wheelhouse time period. Bastille Day, fantastic. Just showing off another of Alex Lifeson always had these amazing kind of off the chart riffs, but they were different than anybody else's riff. They had a different flavor to them. Anthem, Bastille Day, Passage to Bangkok, all of them great riffs, but very different than most people were putting out. And this one is one of the best at that. Pretty heavy song too. This album, I never thought of this album as kind of a heavy album, but when you really sit and listen to it, it is quite a heavy album. I think I'm going bald. Well, I hate to say it, but that track had meaning for me when I first heard it, and I didn't like it, and now I'm okay with it. But back then, I had reasons not to be okay with it because it ended up coming true, right? Lakeside Park, fantastic tune. Probably my favorite Rush song. I hate to say it, but it's probably been my favorite Rush song for close to 40 years now. I kind of took over from Spirit of Radio and Free Will and some of the earlier Rush stuff, but I don't know why. Maybe there's a personal connection to it because I've been there where this song was written about. I feel like it's a homebrew song for sure, and there's just something about it that captures my desires or attention or whatever you want to call it. Then you got the two long tracks here. Necromancer is absolutely a heavy track, lots of heavy stuff going on here. I love it. It's almost a Lord of the Rings feel to it, of course. We all know that. Some real heavy stuff here. Alex Lifeson, maybe his best on this particular track here. Lots of great soloing and riffing and all kinds of stuff going on. Just fantastic tune. Fountain of Lamnath. I like all the parts. Some parts I like more. Panacea, Bacchus Plateau, probably my two favorite parts of the song. Of course, the Dictats and Narpits, I never really cared much for it. It seemed to be out of place on the song. I do like it. Like if as an individual part, I like it, but as a collective part of this song, it just seems out of place to me. Anyways, fantastic long song, Fountain of Lamnath. Probably my favorite of Rush's three epic long songs. Fountain of Lamnath, 2112, and Hemispheres, all three of them great, but this one is probably my favorite. I think the story resonates with me. This album has a kind of a medieval feel to it. Maybe it's because of the cover and the reverse cover, but definitely gives me that medieval feeling, even though it's quite heavy. But a great album. Lots of good stories here. So there you go. That's the 4 albums. Now I got to give you my ranking. This is a bit of a longer episode. I seem to be getting longer as it goes along, so hopefully next week I won't take forever. So this one's going to come in last only because it hasn't stood up as well as the other ones. That's basically all it is. It hasn't stood up as well as the other ones over the years. It's still a great album. I just don't go to it that often. And after listening to it today, I think I've just kind of burned out. It's not as complex an album as the other 3, so there's not as much to find that's new on it, and I think that's part of the reason. So number 4 is the Eagles. Number 3 is Sabbath's Bloody Sabbath. I think the overall recording of this album is a bit on the muffled side. It's not terrible. There's not a huge muffling to it, but there is a little bit. It feels a little congested. But the songs on here are fantastic. It just hasn't stood up as well. I think probably it's just suffering from burnout. That's all it is to it, but not enough to put it on 4th place, but enough to put it in 3rd. Now, this next one's going to be a surprise for people because they know my love for this particular album. It did well today. I haven't listened to it for a while, and it did well, but maybe I'm just not in the right frame of mind for it at this point in history. So I'm going to put it as number 2, although it's a top 10 album for me of all time. But it's going to get knocked out of the place today, and that's Trick of the Tail. Just an absolute masterpiece of an album. A top 10 at one point for me. Probably, maybe it still is. It's in recent years been challenged by some of the Peter Gabriel era stuff. And I think it's just suffering from a little bit of burnout. And there really is like 7 tracks on this album, if you could take off Los Endos. So some of the other albums have more epic sounding tracks, and I think that's what's hurting it a little bit. Anyways, it's going to be number 2. Number 1, of course, is going to be Rush's Caress of Steel. A couple weeks ago, I watched an episode on Will's Rush page where he did a listen to this album and called End of the Tubes tour, and I had been listening to this album. I've never stopped listening to it, but I had been away from it for a bit, and I really enjoyed that. And then so when I was listening to it today, it was reminding me of that. And this album always brings me back to my youth because it talks about places that I grew up in, Lakeside Park. The Necromancer was about Toronto and the River Don and Willowdale and all those places in the Toronto area. And so those always bring me back to my youth. And so it has a magical place for me, being a Rush fan as well. It's I do like the covers, very kind of medieval sounding. So that's why, to me, it won today fairly easily, I think. So anyways, that's my rankings for this week's Battle of the Masterpiece Albums, episode number 14. Please hit the like and subscribe. And if you want, you can comment on all 4 of the albums. And just remember, these are just personal feelings about the albums. I'm not suggesting that you have to feel that way as well, because you probably don't. Some of you may absolutely love some of these albums, and I haven't ranked them as high as you think. Or you may absolutely hate something and wonder why it's even on the list. So it's up to you to put whatever you want. You can put that in the comment section, and we will see you next week on Battle of the Masterpiece Albums, and that will be the final episode for the first round. So take care and have yourself a good one. Goodbye.